They told the conquered the rock would fall in a day. I know because their own officers said it on an open channel, the way men talk when they have already counted a thing as one. A stonecutter and his pets, one of them said. 600 against a stonecutter and his pets. They laughed about it. I heard the laugh come up out of the valley on the night wind, thin and far, the way you hear a stream you can't see. I was filling the high cistern when I heard it. That was my work. I was not a soldier. I had never been a soldier. I came to Stonewatch 11 years before the war found it, hired off a labor barge to cut and seal the water galleries that run down through the center of the rock like veins through a knuckle. The conquered engineers who held the contract then thought the rock was just a choke point, a place to hang a relay and a few guns, and they wanted a man who could keep the water sweet and the stone from sweating. They paid me in scrip and forgot my name inside a month. That suited me. I have never wanted to be remembered. I have wanted, my whole life, only to do a small thing well and be left alone to do it. So when the laugh came up the wind, I did not stop filling the cistern. I closed the valve at the proper mark, wiped the rim, and sat down on the cold lip of the gallery with my back to the warm stone, and I listened to 600 soldiers decide I was already dead. The rock is called Stonewatch on the charts. The people who lived under it before the conquered cleared them off called it something older that I never learned to say right. It is one stone. That is the thing about it that you cannot understand from a chart. It is not a hill with a fort on it. It is a single gray tooth of rock standing up out of a dry plain, 400 meters from the dust to the crown, sheer on 3 sides, and the only way up is a single cut road that switchbacks across the one face that a man can climb. Whoever cut that road first cut it 10,000 years ago. The conquered widened it for their loaders and never thought about what it meant that for 10,000 years no one had ever taken the top of this rock by walking up that road. I thought about it. I had a lot of time those 11 years to sit on the warm stone and think. The garrison the conquered left me with, when the lines moved and the war came creeping up the plain, was 40 soldiers and a captain named Seth who was too tired to be cruel and too honest to lie to his own men. He had been told to hold the rock. He had been told reinforcement was coming. He did not believe it, and he did not pretend to me that he believed it, which is the most respect a soldier ever paid me in my life. The first night the conquered beacons lit up the valley floor, and there were a great many of them, more lights than I had ever seen down there, like a second sky laid flat on the dust. Seth came up to the cistern and sat down next to me without a word and looked at the lights for a while. "They have a strike commander down there," he said finally. "Corps. He took 2 rocks like this one already this season. He has a way of doing it. He puts the loaders up the road under fire and he doesn't care what they cost, and when the road's choked with the dead he comes up over them. He counts the dead like rungs on a ladder." He rubbed his face. "He's right that we can't hold the road. 40 men can't hold that road against 600. "No," I said. He looked at me. Seth had never asked me about the pen. The garrison did not go near the pen. None of them did, not in 11 years, not the engineers before them. They knew there were animals up at the crown, in the old denning galleries I'd sealed and reopened, and they knew the keeper went up there and came down whole, and they had built a whole careful nothing out of not asking. It is easier to hold a rock you do not understand than to admit you are being held by something you cannot command. "The animals," Seth said. He said it the way a man steps onto ice. "The ones up top." "Catherine," I said. He had heard the word. Everyone on the plain had heard the word. The conquered had a whole shelf of fear built around that word, the kind of fear that gets into a species' bones from far enough back that they don't question it anymore. The Kesrin were why the people who lived under the rock had lived under it and not on the plain. The Kesrin were why, 10,000 years on, no one had ever walked up that road and lived. The conquered had cleared the valley of every living thing they feared when they took the contract, every predator and every man, and they had cleared the rock too, or they thought they had. They had sent up gas and gun teams, and they had brought down a great many gray bodies and burned them in a pit at the foot of the road, and they had marked the rock clean. They had missed one. A kit, half-grown, gut-sick from the gas, dragged off into a fault in the stone too tight for a gun team to follow, left there to die in the dark because no one thought a dying kit was worth the climb. I found her when I went down into the lower galleries to check a weep in the water table, 3 weeks into my contract, and I put my lamp into a crack and there were 2 flat gray eyes looking back at me, too tired even to be afraid. I should say what a Kesrin is, because the word does not carry it for a man who has not stood next to one. They are low to the ground and very long, 6-limbed, built like something that was made to pour itself over broken rock and never lose its feet. A grown one comes up past a man's hip at the shoulder and runs 3 times a man's length, and it does not look like that much until it moves, and then you understand all at once that the stillness was the lie and the speed is the truth. Their pelt is the exact gray of the rock, dry gray, dust gray, with a darker grain in it like the grain in the stone, so that a Kesrin lying still against the rock is not hidden. It is simply gone. It has become the rock, and the first you know of it is the rock opening an eye. They have a fanged short muzzle and a wide flat skull, and a way of looking at you, head low, that is not the look of an animal weighing whether to run. It is the look of something deciding whether you are worth the trouble. The Concord's fear of them was not superstition. The Concord's fear of them was the correct and ancient fear of a smaller predator for a larger one. The kit in the crack was not deciding whether I was worth the trouble. She was past that. She was dying and she knew it the way animals know it, with no drama in her at all, and I have thought since that this is why she let me near. She had nothing left to spend on hatting me. I had a flask of clean water and a strip of cured protein meant for my own midday, and I gave her the water first, a little at a time off my fingers because she could not lift her head to a dish. And when she did not die in the night, I gave her the rest, and the next day I brought more, and that is the whole of it. There was no taming. I want that understood. I did not tame her. You do not tame the rock. I sat in the dark with a dying animal, and I did not leave. And when she lived, she had decided something about me that I had no say in, and she has never once let me unconvince her of it. I called her Quist, after no one, because she made a sound in her chest when she was easy that was nearly that word. That was 11 years before Core's beacons lit the valley. Quist was grown long since, the biggest Kesrin on the rock, which made her the matriarch of it because the others came back. They had not all died in the gas, it turned out. The gun teams had cleared the open galleries and the dens they could find, but the rock is full of faults a man cannot follow. And over the first 2 years they came back to it, the way water comes back to a low place, in 1s and 2s, drawn up the road past a sleeping garrison in the dark, and they found Quist holding the crown, and they found me, and they made their own decision about me without consulting me, every one of them. The same decision the kit had made in the dark. By the time the war came up the plain, there were 9 grown Kesrin on Stonewatch in Quist's own litter of the year, 4 half-grown, leggy and ridiculous and lethal, and all of them treated me as a fixed feature of the world, as much a part of the rock as the cistern or the cut road, a thing that belonged to them and was theirs to keep. I told Seth as much of this as a tired captain on the edge of a battle could use. I did not tell him about the dark and the flask of water. I told him there were 13 Kesrin on the rock, and that they would not let Core up the road, and I watched him decide whether I was mad. "They're animals," he said, not unkindly. He was trying to hold onto the thing he had been trained to hold onto. "Pell, they're animals. When the loaders come up that road with cutters and shock lances. When the noise starts and the gas comes, animals run, or they go for whatever's nearest. They won't stand on a line because he stopped. Because a stonecutter tells them to," I said. "I didn't mean it small." "I know you didn't." I stood up off the cistern lip and brushed the stone dust off the seat of my trousers, the way I had brushed it off 10,000 times in 11 years, the same small, useless, tidy motion, and I think it was that more than anything I'd said that steadied him, a man doing an ordinary thing on the edge of the end of the world. "They won't stand on a line, Seth. You're right. You can't make a Kesrin stand on a line, but you don't have to. Core has to come up the road. The road is the only way. And there is nothing on this rock the Kesrin understand better than the road, because for 10,000 years the road is where their grandmothers ate. He looked at me for a long moment. Down in the valley the beacons burned, more of them lighting every hour, and you could hear now, under the wind, the deep tidal grind of heavy loaders moving up into their start positions, a sound like the plane itself clearing its throat. "Show me," Seth said. So I took the captain of the garrison up to the crown, which no soldier had walked in 11 years, to meet the things that were going to win his battle. It was full dark by the time we came up the last gallery and out onto the crown, and the crown of Stonewatch at night is a thing I had stopped seeing the wonder of, the way you stop seeing your own hands. It is bare gray stone worn smooth, open to the whole black bowl of the sky, with the old denning faults running off it down into the rock, and a single twisted tree that should not be able to live up there and lives anyway, rooted into a crack, bent flat by 10,000 years of the wind that never stops on the crown. I keep a low fire in a stone ring near the tree, more for light than warmth, and the Kesrin like the light, and at dusk they come up out of the faults to lie at the edge of it in the warm gray dark, and that is the hour I had come to live for, those 11 years. The keeping hour. I did not have a word for it. I have never needed one. Quist was at the fire when we came up. She was lying along the warm stone with her 4 half-grown sprawled against her in the heap they made, leg over leg, one of the young ones with its big stupid head upside down across her flank, and she lifted her head when she heard us and looked past me at Seth, and I felt the captain go to stone at my shoulder. I have to make you understand what it is to be looked at by a grown Kesrin who has decided you are a question. The young ones tumbled up at once, all 4, not toward me, toward Seth, low, fast, spreading without a sound into a loose gray arc that put themselves between the captain and their mother. And they did not growl. That is the thing people get wrong. They do not warn. The silence is the warning. And Seth's hand went to his sidearm, and I put my own hand flat on his wrist, not gripping, just resting, the way you'd touch a man to keep him from stepping off a ledge in the dark. "Don't," I said quietly. "Don't draw. They're reading whether you're mine. Let them read. Pell. Stand still and let them smell you and think about how I'm standing." I had not raised my voice. I never raised my voice on the crown. The Kesrin do not respect a raised voice. A raised voice is the sound a thing makes when it is afraid, and they file it accordingly. I stood easy with my hand on the captain's wrist, and I let Quist's young ones flow around us in close, and one of them, the boldest, a long male I called Crook for the kink in his tail, put his wide flat skull against my hip and shoved, hard the way they do, claiming me, telling the other 3 that I was accounted for. And then he turned that skull up at Seth and breathed him in, long with his lips off his teeth, and the captain did not move, and I have never been prouder of a man I barely knew. "Easy," I said, to Crook, to Seth, to the dark. It is the word I have used on that rock 10,000 times, the smallest word I own. Easy. Quist made the sound in her chest, the one I named her for, and the young ones felt it run down through them the way you feel a change in the wind before you understand it. And Crook stopped shoving and simply leaned, his whole heavy weight against my leg, and the others went loose, and the arc came apart, and it was over. Seth let his breath out very slowly. "They came between us," he said. His voice was not steady. "They put themselves between us. That's a formation. That's a fire team spread." "That's the road, Seth," I said. 11 years they've watched things come up the road at me, conquered survey teams, a bandit crew once, 3 of them who thought a lone keeper on a rock was a soft thing. I did not tell him about the bandit crew in any more detail than that. Some things a man keeps. They've spread that arc across the head of the road more times than I can count. They know the road. The road is the whole of their understanding. And tomorrow Corps is going to send 600 soldiers up the one piece of ground on this entire rock that these animals understand better than they understand their own young. Seth looked at the Kesrin a long time. Quist had risen now, unhurried, and come to stand by me, and she was a great deal of animal at close hand, the top of her shoulder at my chest, her head turning slow to take in the captain, and Seth made himself meet her eyes, which was either very brave or very foolish and turned out to be brave, because she held his look for a moment and then dismissed it, looked away, judged him not worth the trouble, which from a Kesserin is the kindest thing they have to give. "What do you need from us?" Seth said. The whole shape of the man had changed. He had stopped being a captain holding a doomed rock and become a captain who has found, against all hope, that he has a weapon. "Keep your men off the crown and off the upper road," I said. "Hold your guns on the lower switchbacks where you can do good and where you're out from underfoot. When Core comes, he'll come up the road because the road is the only way, and he'll choke it with loaders and bodies the way he always does, and he'll think he's winning right up until the moment he isn't. Your job is to make him commit. Make it look like 40 tired men and a stonecutter. Make it look like exactly what he thinks it is." I put my hand on Quist's heavy shoulder, and she leaned the great weight of her head against my chest, easy, and over by the fire one of the young ones yawned enormously, all those teeth, and flopped back down into the heap. "And then leave the head of the road to us. Core came at dawn, the way men like Core always come at dawn, because they have read somewhere that dawn is when the defender's spirit is lowest, and they have never once stopped to wonder whether the thing they are attacking has a spirit shaped like theirs. I was on the crown. I had been on the crown all night. I do not sleep before a thing like that, and the Kesserin do not sleep when I do not sleep. They take their cue from the keeper, and the keeper was awake. So 13 Kesserin lay awake in the gray dark along the head of the road, draped over the stone, gone into it, become it, and you could have walked the upper switchback with a lamp and sworn the rock was empty. The first thing up the road was not soldiers. Core was not a fool, whatever else he was. The first thing up was a line of cutter loaders, big armored machines with blade arms and a driver caged in the middle, and behind them a curtain of gas, rolling up the switchbacks ahead of the troops the way it had rolled up 2 other rocks this season, the same gas they had cleared this very rock with 11 years before, and I felt Quist go tense against the old memory of it, the gut-sick dark, and I put my hand on her and said the word. "Easy." The gas is the part I had thought hardest about, those long nights waiting. The gas was how they had taken the rock the first time. The gas was the thing the Kesserin feared in their bones. And I am not a soldier, and I had no soldier's answer to it, but I am a man who had spent 11 years in the water galleries of a single stone, and I knew something Core did not know and could not have known, which is that the crown of Stonewatch breathes. The whole rock breathes. There is a draft that runs up through the faults from the cool dry bottom to the open crown, always because warm air rises and the rock is full of channels, and any gas you roll up the outside of the rock gets pulled at the head of the road, sideways and down into the faults and away, sucked into the breathing stone, so that the head of the road, the last 40 meters before the crown, is the one place on the whole windward face where the air stays clean. I had not engineered it. The rock had engineered it 10,000 years before me. I had only spent 11 years learning to feel where the rock pulled its breath, the way you learn the drafts in an old house, and I had set the Kesserin's line exactly there, in the clean band, and let Core roll his gas up into a place where it would do nothing but slide past and pour away down into the dark. The cutter loaders came up into the clean band one after another, blade arms working, and behind them the first wave of soldiers, masked, lances up, coming on into the thinning gas with the confidence of men who have done this twice already this year and counted the dead like rungs. They could see the crown above them now, bare and empty in the dawn gray, the little garrison's fire smoking, no defenders, the rock theirs in another 100 meters. I imagine on Core's channel, men were already saying it. The rock falls in a day, the rock is falling now. I stood up. I want to be plain about what I did, because the conquered made a great deal of it afterward, and most of what they made was wrong. I did not give an order. You cannot order a Kesserin. I stood up at the head of the road, an ordinary man in a quarryman's coat with stone dust ground into the seams of it, and I let myself be seen alone at the top of the cut, a stonecutter and his nothing, exactly the thing they had come to break. And I said one word, not loud, in the voice I use at the fire. Hold. It is not a command they were trained to. There is no training. It is only the word I have said on that rock 10,000 times at the head of that road, every time something came up it that should not, and a Kesrin learns a word the way it learns everything, by what comes after, and what had always come after that word every time for 11 years, was the keeper standing his ground and the rock staying the rock. Hold meant the road. Hold meant hours. Hold meant the thing that comes up the road does not reach the keeper. They knew the word the way they knew the grain and the stone. The rock opened 13 eyes. I have tried since to say what it looked like to the men coming up the road, and I cannot because I was above them and behind the thing, not below it and in front, but I have the Concord's own records of it because the lead loaders were caged camera machines and the recordings were entered into the inquiry, and I have watched them, and I will tell you what the recordings show. They show a bare gray rock face. They show, for a third of a second, nothing changing. And then they show the rock, the actual stone of the upper switchback, the boulders and the worn lip and the flat gray slabs the soldiers were walking up between. They show the rock stand up. That is the only way I can put it and the only way the men who lived put it. The ground stood up. 13 places that had been stone became, between one frame and the next, low gray shapes already at full speed, pouring down the cut into the head of the column. And the recordings have no sound on the inquiry copy, but you do not need the sound. You can see the column come apart. They did not go for the men first. This is the thing the inquiry could never make sense of and the thing I understood at once, watching because I knew them. They went for the loaders. They went for the machines. 11 years on the road had taught them what a Kesrin grandmother on this rock had always known, and what no amount of conquered doctrine could teach a soldier. That the things that come up the road in front are the dangerous things, the gun things, the cutting things, and you take those first, and the soft things in behind them lose their nerve on their own. Crook took the lead loader the way I had seen him take a wall, up and over the blade arm in one pour of motion, onto the driver's cage, and the loader slewed and stalled with the great mail spread flat over its back like a second skin of stone, and the machines behind it could not pass it on the narrow cut, and the whole armored spine of the assault locked solid on the switchback in the space of 4 seconds. And behind the stalled machines, 600 soldiers found out all at once that they were standing on a road with no room to turn, with gas pouring away into the rock above them and gray shapes coming down the line, and that the rock they had been told would fall in a day had its own ideas about who was prey. I did not watch the rest from above. I came down the cut. I want that on the record too, because the conquered story has me standing godlike on the crown directing my beasts, and the truth is I walked down into the middle of it, an unarmed man, because Quist had gone in, and where Quist goes I go. That is the whole arrangement, that has always been the whole arrangement, and I was not going to stand on the crown while she was on the road. I came down through the clean band into the noise, and the noise was very bad, and I will not describe it, because there were men dying in it, and they were only soldiers who had been told a rock would fall, and there is no glory in the sounds men make when the road they were promised turns out to be a Kesrin grandmother's table. I came down with my hands open and empty, and I said the only words I had, over and over, into the noise. Easy, easy, stay on the stone, easy. And here is the thing. Here is the whole of why I am telling this at all. They eased. In the middle of it, in the worst of it, with the column broken and the loaders stalled and gray death pouring down the cut, the Kesrin heard the keeper's voice come down into the noise, and they eased. Not stopped, they did not stop. The road was not held yet, the thing was not done, but they eased, they pulled their killing back into something with edges. They took the machines and broke the spirit of the men behind them and did not chase the ones who turned and ran back down the switchbacks, because the keeper was saying stay on the stone, and stay on the stone meant the road, meant ours, meant we do not leave the rock, not even to finish them. They held the road. They did not take the plain. There is a discipline in that no soldier on the conquered side could believe a beast capable of, and they were right that no beast is capable of it on its own. It is not the beast's discipline. It is the keeping. It is 11 years of a man at a fire saying easy, until easy became a thing 13 apex predators would choose over the oldest joy their blood knows. I found Quist at the head of the road, where she had held the whole time, where she had not gone down into the column at all. She had let the young ones and the others pour down, and she had stood at the top of the cut, between the road and the crown, between the war and the keeper, which is the only place a matriarch ever truly wants to be. And she had not needed to lift a paw, because nothing got past the young ones. Nothing got within 40 meters of the crown. And she stood there gray and enormous and entirely calm in the wreck of Core's morning with her flat eyes on the road. And when I came up beside her, she leaned the great weight of her head against my chest, the way she had the night before at the fire, the way she had 10,000 times, and I put my arms around her neck and I held on, because my legs had gone, finally, now that it was over, and she held me up. Strike Commander Core was not on the road. Men like Core are never on the road. He was below, at his command post on the plane, watching it on his loader's caged cameras, and the inquiry record has his channel, and you can hear the morning happen to him in real time. You can hear him give the order to press. You can hear him give it again when the column does not move. You can hear slower, the change come into his voice as the camera feeds show him what is standing up off the rock, as his officers stop reporting numbers and start reporting things that have no place in a strike report. The ground moved, sir. The ground is moving. And you can hear the exact moment, which the inquiry made him listen to in front of the whole board, when Strike Commander Core, who had taken 2 rocks like this one and counted the dead like rungs on a ladder, says into the channel, quietly in a voice with nothing left in it, pull them back, pull them back. And then lower, almost to himself, not for the channel at all, but the channel caught it. It was a Stonecutter. They told me it was a Stonecutter. He pulled them back. What was left of them? He had put 600 up the road, and the rock had handed him back something less than half, and not one of them had set foot on the crown. And the worst of it for a man like Core was not the dead, I think. The worst of it was that the dead bought nothing. There was no ladder. The rock did not fall in a day. The rock did not fall at all. He had spent his soldiers up a road against a Stonecutter, and his pets, exactly the thing he had laughed about on an open channel the night before. And his own officers had heard him laugh, and his own officers stood on the plain and watched a single man in a quarryman's coat walk down into the middle of the impossible and say easy to it. And there is no marshal's report in any service in the galaxy that can dress that into a victory or even into an honorable defeat. He had not been beaten by an army. He had been refused by a rock. The conquered broke him for it, not for the dead. Services forgive the dead, but for the laugh on the open channel and the camera feed of the ground standing up, because a commander can survive losing and cannot survive being made small. And Core was made very small, in front of his ranks and the board and the whole long memory of the service. And they took his rank and his command and sent him to count stores on a moon. And the last anyone heard he had stopped speaking of it at all, which I understand. Some things a man keeps because he cannot put them down. They did not come up the road again. The conquered moved its lines around Stonewatch, the way water moves around a stone too hard to wear, and the war went on somewhere else. And Stonewatch held, because Stonewatch had always held, because for 10,000 years no one had ever taken the top of that rock by walking up that road, and no one ever will. And the only thing that had changed in 11 years was that now there was a man at the fire who could say the word that meant hours in a voice the rock's own gray grandmothers would hear and obey. Seth stayed. The garrison stayed, what was left of it, and a few more drifted in over the seasons. Men who had heard the story and wanted to see the rock that refused a marshal, and most of them never went up to the crown, never asked, built their careful nothing the way the old engineers had, and that was fine, that was right. You do not need to understand the rock to be kept safe by it. But Seth came up to the fire after, more nights than not, and sat at the edge of the light where the Kesrin had decided he was mine and was therefore allowed, and the young ones grew used to him, and Crook took to leaning on the captain's leg the way he leaned on mine, claiming a second keeper, which I did not have the heart to tell Seth was the highest honor anything on that rock would ever pay him. The story got out, of course. Stories like that always get out. It went down the labor barges and up the relay chains, and out into the long dark where men trade tailies they only half believe, and it grew in the telling the way they do. And by the time it came back around to me, years on, off the mouth of a barge hand who did not know he was telling it to the man it was about, it had me 10 feet tall and the Kesrin numbered in the hundreds and the dead at Stonewatch beyond counting, and I let him tell it, and I did not correct him. Because the true story is smaller than the told one, and the smaller story is mine and I keep it. The true story is a dying kit in a crack in the dark and a flask of clean water. The true story is 11 years of a man saying easy at a fire until the word meant something. The true story is that I never tamed a single one of them, never commanded a single one of them, only stood my ground at the head of a road and was kept in return by things that should by every law of their blood have eaten me, because somewhere back in the beginning one of them looked at me in the dark when she was too tired to hate, and decided with no say from me that I was hers. That is the part the conquered could never put in the inquiry, and the part Kor could never make sense of from his command post on the plain, and the part Seth understood the first night when the young ones came between us, and I told him to let them read. They did not hold the rock because I trained them to. You cannot train it. They held the rock because they had chosen me, all of them, one at a time, the way the kit chose me in the crack, and a thing that has chosen you will hold any rock in the galaxy against any number, and it will do it not as a weapon and not as a beast, but as a part of you, the way your own hand holds without being asked. 600 came up the road to break a stonecutter and his pets, and they learned what the people who lived under the rock had always known, and what the rock itself has known for 10,000 years, that there is no breaking a thing that has been chosen, that the smallest keeping outlasts the largest war, that one ordinary man at a fire with the right quiet word is a harder rock than any Marshall's 600. Quist died 4 winters after Kor. She was old by then, old for a Kesrin, and she died the way she had lived, with no drama in her, in the warm gray dark at the edge of the fire with her old heavy head against my chest and her young ones, grown now, grown and with young of their own ranged in the heap around her, keeping the long quiet watch that her kind keep. I held her the whole night. I did not say easy. There was no need. She was already easy. She had always from the first been easy with me, which is the whole and only thing I ever did right in my life, that an apex predator dying in a crack in the dark found me easy. In the morning the others took her down into the deepest of the faults, the ones a man cannot follow, the grandmother faults, and I did not follow, and that was right too. The rock keeps its own. Crook holds the road now. He is the biggest Kesrin on Stonewatch, which makes him the matriarch's heir of it, even being male, because the rock does not stand much on such distinctions. It stands on who will hold the head of the road, and Crook will, and his young will. And I am an old man now, and I sit at the fire in the keeping hour, and they come up out of the faults and lie at the edge of the light and lean their great weights against me. And the wind never stops on the crown, and below us the plain is quiet, and the road is empty, the way the road has been empty for 10,000 years, the way the road will be empty for 10,000 more. They told the conquered the rock would fall in a day. It is a rock. It does not fall. It was here before the Marshal, and it will be here after the last man who ever heard his name, gray and patient and breathing, with 13 quiet eyes in it that open at one word from the keeper, and the word is not a soldier's word, and it is not a marshal's word, and it is not large. It is the smallest word I own. I have said it 10,000 times at this fire, and I will say it 10,000 more, to the dark and to the wind and to the things that chose me, and they will hear it, and they will hold. Easy.